All right. I say this a lot, even when I speak. This is one of my favorite topics, and influencers can be in a second, or they can be in a lifetime type of deal also. And really quick, my first influencer, I think, was my grandfather. He and my grandmother, my mom, and I were from Kiev, and they came over to Canada. And when I was about 5, he took me for walks in the park. And one time I asked him, I called him, say, how do you know all these people? And he said, well, one day I looked at the guy over there and I smiled at him, and he came over and smiled back, and we started talking, and I felt great after that. And then another person saw us laughing and came over and smiled at us, and we started talking there and became friends. And a 5-year-old thinking, well, this is easy. All you got to do is smile, and you're going to be great in the world. And it was true, because it does make a physiological and psychological, I guess, difference to someone when you smile and you feel good. And as I got older, I thought it does actually work to even a bigger degree. And we all have lots of influencers, but can you share maybe 2 or 3 that have been influential in your life?
Yeah, I love that story. I can completely see where you got it from.
Yeah,
Your
me too.
grandfather. Well, and when we were talking earlier, you pointed out a major influencer in my life was that dean that I spoke to in college when I went to her and I said, I'd like to drop out of school because I don't want to pay for a college degree when I'm just going to be a yoga teacher and teach rock climbing. And she was smart enough to say, well, she said, I think you're smart enough that you're going to look back and regret that decision. Let me give you an opportunity to design the major that suits the life that you want. And I don't remember her name. I wish I could remember her name so I could reach out and thank her. It was like a half-hour conversation and I never saw her again. Um, but that she put a doorway in my life that I didn't know existed. And behind that doorway was a whole world in which if the thing that's did fit me didn't exist, I got to make what did. And that, I went on to design my graduate degree and I've gone on to design 25 years of my career, never having been employed by anyone else. It's always been completely creative around what interests me at that point and what I how I want to interface with the world. And she kind of blew on that ember in me because I think it was always in there. I just didn't think there was anywhere to go with it in this world. And she showed me there was. Um, and another,
Teachers, sorry to interrupt for a second, but before I forget, teachers often don't see most of the impact that they make out there. And I love Mr. Holland's Opus. If you've ever seen that
yeah,
movie, it
yeah.
tells the story right there. But yeah, who
And,
else?
well, I was going to say, I reached out to my college a couple years ago and said, who would this have been? It was this year, and I remember she was around this old, and we sleuthed around for a while to try and figure out who it was, but couldn't figure it out. Um, the other influencer that comes to mind is a therapist that I worked with, starting about 8 years ago. Her name's Nancy Dreyfus. She's freaking brilliant. She wrote a book called Talk to Me Like I'm Somebody You Love.
Hmm.
And she's been wildly influential to me in my career, but she was she was the person who I've had so many teachers, so many mentors, so many wise friends along the way. And in my 30s, in my early 30s, I still felt like I couldn't quite heal some of my stuff from childhood and some of the kind of the things that about myself that I just couldn't see, that they were tripping me up from the inside out. And she was the mentor who came along who I think I would just been praying for my whole life. The person where you're like, there's got to be somebody out there who can see what the problem is and just untangle this mess. And she was, I think within the first half hour of talking to her, she had given me more than any therapist had given me in 10, 15 years. And I was like, whoa. And I got to have the privilege of working with her for a few years. And she gave me my life back, in a way that felt like before then I was, fettered. I was shackled in some way and I couldn't fully get free. Not to say that I'm fully free now, but I feel a lot more liberated from my insides that used to trip me up pretty big.
That's amazing, the impact people can make. Sometimes the right time, right place, but more often saying the right thing. at the right time.
Absolutely. And just being the right, she was enough wired like me, and also in her 70s, to be able to just like drop some real embodied wisdom from life, and from someone who I know got it, not just someone who, had read a book about it.
Yeah,
Made it.
experiences are important. Not just experience, but experiences are important that
Yeah.
people can share. Anybody else you want to highlight?
Not that comes to mind right now. I
Not even
should.
me.
Well, there was this guy, Mark, one time.
What's the last name? It's not Fields and it's not Moon or Sun or anything like that. No, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure you've influenced a lot of people. And you know what? Someone told me this a long time ago and I remembered it. They said, we're always influencing people ourselves. We may not most of the time even know that we're doing it. So our choices, we can be positive or negative and just assume it's going to be influencing
Mhm.
people. And what a better way to go.
That's
So
a good perspective.
yeah, I think so too. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.